The suburban residential area spreading across Pennsylvania was enveloped in silence as the autumn evening fell. The Wilson family's two-story house was a typical middle-class home in this neighborhood. Though the white paint on the exterior walls had faded slightly, the well-maintained small garden and seasonal flowers placed by the front entrance created a warm atmosphere for this home. In the living room, Linda Wilson sat on the sofa, basking in the relief of having just finished preparing dinner. A former bank employee, she was good with numbers and single-handedly managed the household finances. She preferred clothing that gave an elegant impression to her slender figure and was trusted by the neighborhood women as dependable Linda. However, beneath her well-groomed exterior lay a side that could make coldly realistic decisions when necessary. In the adjacent study, her husband Robert was reviewing construction company documents. He had started a small construction company 25 years ago and had continued steady, community-rooted management ever since. His tanned face and hands hardened by labor told the story of his many years of experience in the field. With his gentle nature and good local reputation, while not wealthy, he earned enough income to support his family. However, he constantly harbored anxiety about the future prospects of his business and often relied on his wife Linda's opinions for financial decisions. In the room immediately up the stairs, Sophia was studying with medical textbooks spread out before her. She had grown up bearing all of her parents' expectations from a young age. In addition to her beautiful blonde hair and well-formed features, she had always achieved excellent grades academically. During high school, she was active as captain of the volleyball team, and in college, she majored in biology while aiming for medical school admission. For her parents, Sophia was their pride and their investment in the future. Whenever Linda met people in the neighborhood, she would enthusiastically talk about her daughter's grades and prospects as a future doctor. Meanwhile, in the adjacent room, Sophia's older sister Emma was sitting at an old upright piano. As her fingertips glided across the keys, beautiful melodies resonated through the quiet night air. Emma had shown extraordinary talent for music since she first touched the piano at age 5. By middle school, she had won prizes in regional competitions, and in high school, she was active as the ace of the music club. However, her talent was often treated by her parents as something that didn't exceed the realm of hobby. Emma's room told the story of her passion for music. Various composers' posters were hung on the walls, and stacks of sheet music were piled on her desk. An old guitar leaned beside her bed, and a small keyboard was placed by the window. However, none of these instruments were expensive, they were all things Emma had gradually collected by working part-time jobs herself. Emma's position within the family was complicated. While she was no less capable academically than Sophia, compared to her younger sister who had the clear future vision of medical school, her parents' view of Emma, who had chosen the unstable field of music, was cold. Linda constantly said, only a handful of people can make a living from music, and Robert didn't try to hide his belief that she should pursue a stable profession. When dinner time came, the family of 4 gathered around the dining table. The conversation naturally centered on Sophia's topics: progress in medical school entrance exam preparation, hopes for future specialization fields, and the tuition and exam fees that her parents generously provided. Emma continued eating silently, occasionally nodding in agreement. In this household, the definition of success was clearly established: stable profession, social status, economic stability. And Sophia was expected to fulfill all of these. Meanwhile, Emma's passion for music was treated as a youthful dream and recognized as something that should eventually give way to a realistic path. After finishing dinner, Emma sat at the piano again. The music she played was beautiful enough for everyone in the family to acknowledge. However, her parents questioned whether that beauty was something worth investing in for the future. For Linda and Robert, while they recognized Emma's talent, they believed it was unrealistic to establish it as a profession. That night, Emma began seriously considering attending music college. She had confidence that her music could become something more than just a hobby. However, she also understood that the path would not be smooth. Particularly, whether she could gain understanding and support from her family was a major source of anxiety. The Wilson family's day was about to end peacefully on the surface. However, the differences in this family's values and the disparity in expectations would eventually create a major rift. That rift had begun with a certain incident 10 years ago. 10 years earlier, in the fall, Emma Wilson was living the most fulfilling days of her life as a third-year music college student. Life at the Philadelphia Music Academy was a dream come true for her. Spending every day in practice rooms and competing with peers who shared the same aspirations was something she could never have experienced in her hometown. Emma's talent stood out even in college. The piano department professors highly praised her performance technique and musical sensitivity, and she was particularly noted as a promising talent in the field of composition. She won the top prize 3 times in school competitions and was honored with numerous awards at regional music festivals. She was looked upon with respect by her classmates and was an object of admiration for underclassmen. However, behind her brilliant success, Emma faced serious economic hardship. Music college tuition was certainly not cheap, and she was somehow continuing her studies through scholarships, limited support from her parents, and her own part-time job income. The monthly allowance from her parents was minimal, and Linda's words, "Is it really necessary to spend so much money on music studies?" always accompanied the money transfers. Emma worked as a waitress at an Italian restaurant called Bella Notte near the university. 4 days a week, from evening after classes until late at night, she would rush around the dining room. She would return to the dormitory exhausted and head to the practice room again the next morning. However, Emma didn't feel this lifestyle was painful. Her passion for music became the driving force to overcome all difficulties. However, shortly after the fall semester of her 3rd year began, the foundation supporting Emma's life began to crumble. First, she received notice from the university of a tuition increase. The content stated that starting with the spring semester, annual tuition would rise by 20%. Emma's scholarship was a partial merit-based award, and the increase would be her own responsibility. Adding insult to injury, Bella Notte's management began to deteriorate. The restaurant had been beloved in this area for many years, but customers had been staying away since a major chain store opened nearby. Owner Marco Rossi made the painful decision to close the restaurant and gave notice of dismissal to all staff, including Emma. "Emma, it's truly painful to let go of someone as wonderful as you," Marco said with tears in his eyes. "But there's nothing I can do anymore. I've added a little extra to your final paycheck, so use it to tide you over until you find a new job." Emma bid farewell to Marco with gratitude, but deep anxiety spread through her heart. The double blow of tuition increases and job loss fundamentally threatened her university life. She desperately searched for a new part-time job, but it was difficult to find a position that would allow her to secure practice time for music. She applied for various jobs like late-night convenience stores and early morning cleaning work, but all were difficult to balance with her studies. As time passed, Emma's savings began to run out. On a cold November night, Emma was calculating with a calculator in her dormitory room. Spring tuition, living expenses, textbook costs, and piano lesson fees. No matter how she calculated, it was impossible to continue university under her current circumstances. With trembling hands, she picked up her cell phone and called her parents back home. "Mom, it's me," Emma's voice was high with tension. "Emma? What's wrong, calling so late?" Linda's voice carried an annoyed tone. "Actually, I have something to discuss. About tuition." On the other end of the phone, Linda let out a deep sigh. "Money talk again? You keep going on about music, how long are you going to continue with that?" Emma desperately explained the situation, the tuition increase, the restaurant closure, not being able to find a new job. However, Linda's reaction was cold. "That's your problem. We don't have unlimited resources either. Sophia's exam fees are expensive too, and your father's company isn't doing well. Mom, please. I'll definitely pay it back. I'll absolutely repay it after graduation." Emma's voice became tearful. "Pay it back? But can you make a living from music? Face reality, Emma. Music is just a hobby after all. Getting a proper job and earning a stable income, that's what being an adult means." The phone was hung up abruptly. Emma remained motionless for a while, gripping her cell phone. The next day, Emma took the plunge and called her father directly. Robert wasn't as harsh as his wife, but his understanding of music was equally poor. Emma, I can't say I don't understand your feelings. But our family has various circumstances too. Robert's voice sounded apologetic. Sophia's medical school entrance exams are coming up, and prep school costs are no joke. Besides, I honestly don't understand if your musical path will really lead to a future. Dad, I'm serious about this. I want to live through music. I understand that. But realistically speaking, it's difficult to earn a stable income from music. You must understand that too. This conversation also ended without securing financial support from her parents. Emma hung up the receiver with a feeling of despair. Over the following weeks, Emma tried every possible method, applying for student loans, recruiting students for private music lessons, searching for jobs that would work even on weekends only. However, everything was insufficient. She had already borrowed up to the limit on student loans, and private lesson students didn't gather as she had hoped. When December arrived, Emma's situation worsened further. Her dormitory payments fell behind, and it became common to reduce meals to once a day. Her classmates noticed her changes, but proud Emma couldn't consult anyone about her financial difficulties. One day, Dr. Harrison, her music theory professor, called Emma to her research office. Emma, I've been watching you lately and I'm worried. If you have any troubles, please feel free to discuss them with me. At the elderly female professor's kind words, Emma finally opened up about what was in her heart: tuition problems, lack of understanding from family, anxiety about the future. When she finished telling everything, tears were flowing down Emma's cheeks. You have truly wonderful talent, Dr. Harrison said quietly. But talent alone won't open doors. Sometimes realistic judgment is also necessary. The professor explained the university's special scholarship system, but the application deadline had already passed and it wouldn't be available until the following year. When Emma returned home for Christmas vacation, she faced her parents with her last hope. However, the conversation in the living room completely betrayed her expectations. Emma, face reality once and for all, Linda said coldly. Music doesn't go beyond the realm of hobby. I want you to study something more practical. But Mom, the professors say I have talent. Even if you have talent, you can't make a living from it. Look at Sophia. If she becomes a doctor, she'll have a stable income. That's the path that gives us peace of mind as parents. After this final conversation, Emma made the decision to leave university. 3 years of accumulated effort, the human relationships she had built, and above all, her dreams of music, she would have to give up everything. However, there were no other options left. In January, before the new semester began, Emma submitted her withdrawal form. The farewell with her classmates was painful, but she explained with a smile that she had decided to walk a new path. No one knew the truth. On the day she left Philadelphia, Emma visited the piano practice room one last time. In the empty room, she played just one song she loved. The music born from her fingertips was as beautiful as ever. However, that beauty was no longer something that would illuminate her future. 3 months after leaving university, on a spring day, special celebration preparations were arranged in the Wilson family dining room. Luxurious food that Mother Linda had splurged on was lined up on the table, and a bottle of champagne opened to celebrate Sophia's medical school acceptance was sparkling. Congratulations, Sophia. Robert embraced his daughter's shoulder and smiled proudly. Your dream has finally come true. Sophia beamed as she picked up the acceptance letter. Thank you, Dad. I'm really happy. This is thanks to you and Mom too. Linda kissed her daughter's cheek and replied, It's because you worked hard. We're proud of you. Emma sat at the end of the table, quietly applauding. In the 3 months since returning home, she had been working part-time at a local cafe while continuing to think about her future. Her passion for music never disappeared, but she also understood the need to explore realistic paths. Emma, say something too. Linda turned toward Emma. Really, congratulations, Sophia. That's wonderful, Emma said with a genuine smile. In her heart, feelings of truly celebrating her sister's success swirled together with complex thoughts about her own shattered dreams. Sophia looked at her sister and replied, Thank you. But you can find a new path too. There are various things besides music. Those words might not have contained malice. However, to Emma, they seemed to contain the family's shared recognition that music is just a hobby after all. Actually, I have something I'd like to discuss with everyone. Emma summoned her courage to begin. I want to return to the path of music once more. A moment of silence visited the dining room. Linda's expression instantly clouded, and Robert showed a look of confusion. Emma, that talk again? Linda's voice clearly contained irritation. You gave up once, didn't you? Why are you still thinking about such things? Mom, I didn't give up. I just temporarily interrupted due to financial problems, Emma desperately explained. The music school professors recognized my talent too, and they said they'd welcome me back. Talent, Linda laughed through her nose. What good does talent do? Only a handful of people can make a living from music. Face reality. Sophia put down her glass and interjected, Sister, but music is unstable, isn't it? Like me, if you become a doctor, you're guaranteed a stable income. Sophia, this doesn't concern you, Emma's voice unusually contained irritation. Doesn't concern me? Sophia frowned. We're family, so it does concern me. It would be troublesome if Sister chases unrealistic dreams and causes problems for everyone. What do you mean by problems? Emma stood up. Well, it's about money again, isn't it? Linda said coldly. You're planning to ask us to pay tuition again. Emma was momentarily at a loss for words. Indeed, returning to music school required funding. It was an amount that could never be covered by part-time work alone. That's right, Emma answered honestly. But I'll definitely pay it back. Please, give me one last chance. Linda leaned back in her chair and stared at Emma. Emma, when will you face reality? Music is just a hobby after all. Making a living from it is a pipe dream. But Mom. No buts, Linda's voice became stern. Look at Sophia. She was accepted to medical school and will become a fine doctor in 6 years. That's a realistic choice. Instead of talking about pie-in-the-sky ideas like you, have more down-to-earth thoughts. Robert opened his mouth to mediate. Linda, isn't that a bit too harsh? Too harsh? Linda turned to her husband. I'm just teaching reality. I don't think Emma has a future like her sister. It would be a waste of money. Those words pierced deeply into Emma's heart. No future, waste of money. These words from her mother's mouth made the doubts she had kept hidden in her heart become reality. Mom, does that mean, Emma's voice trembled, that I have no value? Linda answered without hesitation. I wouldn't say you have no value, but I can't expect the certain investment return like with Sophia. At that moment, Sophia's cell phone rang. Her face brightened as she looked at the screen. Oh, it's a notification from the bank, Sophia looked at the screen happily. Medical school tuition, full payment completed. Linda and Robert showed expressions of relief. Good, Linda smiled. Now we don't have to worry about tuition for 6 years. Emma was stunned. Sophia's medical school tuition for 6 years amounted to tens of thousands of dollars. Her parents had paid it without any hesitation. Meanwhile, they had called even 1 year's tuition for her music school wasteful. 6 years' worth, in full? Emma asked in disbelief. That's right, Robert answered proudly. For Sophia's future, it's a worthwhile investment. But you can't pay for 1 year of my tuition? That and this are different matters, Linda immediately replied. Sophia will become a doctor. She'll certainly contribute to society and earn a stable income. It carries different weight from your music. Sophia put down her cell phone and looked at Emma. A faint smile appeared on her lips. See, sister, Sophia's voice contained a sense of superiority. This is reality. You don't have that kind of value. At that moment, something snapped inside Emma. Humiliation, neglect, contempt that had accumulated over many years, everything was about to burst out at once. However, she stood up quietly. I understand, Emma's voice was strangely calm. I have no value. Emma, don't say it like that. Robert stood up frantically. No, Dad. I understand clearly now. Emma looked around the table. I'm an existence without investment value to the family. Linda, perhaps feeling guilty, softened her tone slightly. Emma, you're also a precious daughter. I just want you to make realistic choices. Realistic choices, Emma repeated her mother's words. That means giving up my dreams and walking the path the family approves of. Exactly, Sophia declared. There's no point in just chasing dreams. Emma quietly looked at her sister. There was the innocent cruelty of a young woman who had grown up receiving all the family's love. Sophia herself wasn't malicious. She simply took it for granted that she was a valuable existence to the family, and also naturally thought that her sister was not. Thank you, everyone, Emma said peacefully. I understand well now. She began walking toward the stairs. Emma, where are you going? Linda called out. To pack my things, Emma answered without looking back. There's no reason for me to be here anymore. An hour later, Emma stood at the entrance with a small suitcase and Boston bag. The family saw her off from the living room. Emma, reconsider, Robert said worriedly. We're family. Dad, what is family? Emma quietly asked. Is family just being blood-related? Or is family believing in and supporting each other? No one could answer. I thought it was the latter, but it seems I was wrong. Emma put her hand on the doorknob. Goodbye. The sound of the door closing broke the silence of the Wilson house. The family left behind couldn't speak for a while. Sophia's cell phone rang again, this time with a call from the university. However, no one paid attention to that sound. Emma Wilson left the house where she was born and raised. She had no destination in mind. However, she had conviction. True value is not something others decide. It's something you find and build up yourself. 10 years have the power to dramatically change a person's life. In the dressing room of Philadelphia's Kimmel Performing Arts Center, Emma Wilson quietly gazed at herself in the mirror. At 32 years old, she wore an expression more filled with confidence than before. On the dressing room door, a plaque reading, Emma Wilson, Grammy-nominated singer, was shining. Tonight was a special night for her, a triumphant hometown performance. 10 years ago, when she was abandoned by her family and left this city alone, she could never have imagined the success she now held. Tickets sold out within 3 hours of going on sale, and local media had extensively reported the miraculous return of hometown star Emma Wilson. Emma's journey had not been smooth. After leaving home, she headed to New York and started by performing at small live houses. During the day she worked at cafes, and at night she devoted herself to musical activities. For the first few years, she continued singing on small stages with almost no audience. However, her heartfelt songs and outstanding performance technique gradually attracted attention in the music industry. The turning point came 5 years ago. A song called Invisible Worth, which Emma wrote and composed, was released on an independent label and became explosively popular on social media. This song deeply resonated with the hearts of people who weren't recognized for their value by their families, receiving support from young people worldwide. The subsequently released album, Finding My Voice, reached #1 on the Billboard charts, and Emma shot to stardom overnight. There was a knock on the dressing room door. Manager Sarah peeked in. Emma, are you ready? The audience is already full. And, Sarah hesitated slightly, your family is here. They're in the VIP section. Emma's hand stopped for a moment. For 10 years, she had had no contact with her family whatsoever. She had ignored all phone calls and emails from her parents and had brushed off updates about their circumstances from hometown friends. However, deep in her heart, she had sensed that this day would come. I understand, Emma answered calmly. Let's do this as usual. Taking the stage, Emma looked out over the audience from under the dazzling spotlights. 2,500 listeners were sending her enthusiastic applause for her appearance. When she found 3 familiar silhouettes in the front VIP section, her heart beat faster for a moment. Father Robert's gray hair had become noticeable. Mother Linda's previously intimidating atmosphere had also faded. And Sophia was looking up at her sister with an exhausted expression. "Good evening, Philadelphia," Emma's voice resonated throughout the hall. "I'm truly happy to be able to return to my hometown. The concert was a great success." Emma's singing voice had much richer expressive power than it had 10 years ago. The songs filled with life's struggles and the joy of success deeply moved the audience's hearts. And as the final song approached, Emma gripped the microphone again. "Finally, let me sing a new song. This is called A Worth Nothing. It's a song for people who were told they had no value." A beautiful piano intro resonated, and Emma's voice broke the silence. The lyrics sang of the pain of being abandoned by family, the difficulty of continuing to believe in one's own worth, and ultimately the beauty of finding one's true self. Throughout the venue, people could be seen shedding tears. The 3 members of the Wilson family in the VIP section were also listening to Emma's song with complex expressions on their faces. Tears of regret glistened in Linda's eyes. When the concert ended, Emma left the stage amid a standing ovation. After returning to the dressing room for a while, there was another knock at the door. This time, the 3 family members were standing there. "Emma," Robert opened his mouth. "That was a wonderful concert. You really are." "Good evening, Dad," Emma answered peacefully. "Mom too, and Sophia. It's been a long time." Linda was in tears. "Emma, we were wrong. I'm truly sorry for hurting you." "You don't need to apologize, Mom," Emma's voice held no anger. There was just distance. "Rather, I'm grateful. Thanks to all of you, I was able to find true strength." Sophia stepped forward. Her face no longer held its previous arrogance. "Sister, I dropped out of medical school," Sophia's voice was trembling. "In my 3rd year. I couldn't keep up with the studies, and the debt kept growing." Emma didn't show a surprised expression. Actually, she already knew about her sister's recent circumstances. Since her success, information from her hometown had also started coming in. "Now I'm working multiple part-time jobs, but repaying the tuition debt is difficult," Sophia continued. "Dad and Mom also lost their house to debt when Dad's company failed and they became guarantors." Robert spoke painfully. "Emma, actually, we came here today because we have something to discuss with you." "About money," Emma said quietly. "That's right. I'm sorry, but could you help us out a little?" Robert's voice was filled with humiliation. "Knowing that you're successful, we thought maybe." "How much do you need?" Emma asked matter-of-factly. "About $30,000 in total," Linda answered in a small voice. Considering Sophia's tuition debt, the remaining house loan, and living expenses. Emma crossed her arms and pretended to think. Actually, that amount wasn't a big deal to her. It was only part of the income she could earn from one concert. "Sister, please," Sophia pleaded. "We have no one else to turn to." Emma looked around at the 3 of them. 10 years ago, these 3 people had told her she was worthless. And now, they were seeking salvation from that worthless daughter. It was an ironic turn of events. "Do you remember," Emma began speaking quietly, "the words Mom said to me 10 years ago? Sophia has a future, but spending money on you would be wasteful." Linda covered her face. "Emma, please, that was." "And Sophia," Emma looked at her sister. "You told me I had no value." While smiling smugly. Sophia couldn't say anything. "At that time, I really thought maybe I truly had no value," Emma continued. "But after leaving home, I understood. Value isn't something others decide. It's something you create yourself." Robert opened his mouth. "Emma, you're absolutely right. We were wrong. But we're family." "Family?" Emma shook her head. "Dad, thank you for teaching me I had no value. Thanks to that, I was able to learn what true family really is." "What do you mean by true family?" Linda asked. "Not blood relations, but people who believe in me," Emma smiled. "My manager Sarah, all the recording staff, and fans around the world." They are my true family. But Emma, Sophia made one final plea. We're really in trouble. Emma stood up. Sophia, you said 10 years ago, you don't have that kind of value. Today, I'm returning those words to you. The three faces went pale. To me, you no longer have that kind of value. Emma's voice was calm, but those words contained absolute determination. 10 years ago, you abandoned me. Now it's my turn to abandon you. Emma, please, Linda pleaded through tears. Don't worry, Mom, Emma walked toward the door. I'm sure you'll manage somehow. Just like I did. The dressing room door closed, and the three were left behind. Only the sound of Emma's footsteps echoed in the hallway. 3 years passed after that. In the ballroom of New York's luxury hotel, the Plaza, prominent figures from the music industry had gathered. Tonight, the annual awards ceremony of the Emma Wilson Foundation was being held. This foundation had been established by Emma 3 years ago to support young people who were forced to give up their musical dreams due to financial hardship. On stage, Emma stood before the microphone, wrapped in a beautiful gold dress. At 35 years old, she radiated a brilliance filled with success and fulfillment. Tonight, we are awarding scholarships to 25 young musicians. Emma's voice resonated through the venue. Among them are people who couldn't gain understanding from their families and couldn't receive financial support. But I want to tell them everyone has irreplaceable value. Warm applause was sent from the audience. One of the recipients, 19-year-old Michael Chan, came up on stage. He came from a poor immigrant family, and his parents ran a dry cleaning business while trying to understand their son's passion for music. Thanks to Emma's foundation, I can attend music school, Michael spoke through tears. My family initially opposed it, saying you can't make a living from music. But seeing Emma's success, they came to understand the importance of pursuing dreams. Emma smiled as she looked at him. She was happy that her success had led to deeper understanding in other families. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Pennsylvania, the three members of the Wilson family were watching that awards ceremony on television. The cramped two-room apartment was a stark contrast to their once luxurious home. Robert was working as an hourly laborer at a small repair shop. The construction company had gone bankrupt and they had lost their house. Linda was working part-time as a cashier at a local supermarket. For the once proud woman, the pitying looks from neighbors were unbearable. Sophia was single and working multiple part-time jobs. Repaying her medical school tuition debt was still not finished, and she continued living under pressure from monthly payments. Her former beauty was now hidden by fatigue, and there was no longer any trace of the dreamy girl she once was. Watching Emma on TV taking photos with the recipients with a smile, Linda let out a deep sigh. That girl was right, Linda murmured quietly. We have no value. Robert didn't answer. He too was keenly aware of how wrong their judgment from over 10 years ago had been. Sophia's cell phone rang. The screen displayed overdue payment notice. She silently put the phone on mute. For the past 3 years, similar notifications had arrived multiple times each month. On TV, Emma continued her speech. The philosophy of my foundation is simple. Every person has value. Even if you're not understood by family, even if you're in financially difficult circumstances, you don't need to give up your dreams. Just as I experienced myself, true value is something you prove yourself. Emma's words were delivered to television viewers nationwide. Among them were the family members who had once abandoned her. However, there was no longer any place for them in Emma's world. After the awards ceremony ended, Emma enjoyed a modest party with the foundation staff. Around her were people who truly loved and supported her. Manager Sarah, producer Tom, and many music colleagues. They were Emma's true family. Let's increase the scholarship recipients to 50 next year, Emma suggested to Sarah. I want to support even more young people. That's a wonderful idea, Sarah smiled. Your success has truly become hope for so many people. As the night grew late, Emma stood by the window of her penthouse. The New York cityscape spreading below glittered with countless lights. Each one seemed to represent someone's dreams and hopes. 13 years ago, a girl who was told by her family that she was worthless had now become someone who gave value and hope to people around the world. She had proven with her own life that true value is not something others decide, but something you build up yourself. Far away in Pennsylvania, the 3 members of the Wilson family fell asleep in their cramped apartment. Tomorrow, more labor for debt repayment awaited them. Meanwhile, Emma was gaining inspiration for a new song and sat down at the piano. It was a song filled with hope, singing about the value that sleeps in everyone's heart.